Hello friends! Welcome to this video for week 4 of the Spiritual Autobiography Project with the First Congregational Church of Crystal Lake. I'm Emily Davis. I am Associate Pastor at the First Congregational Church, and I am so humbled and honored and blessed that you have become a part of this journey with us. If this is your first time coming to one of these videos for the Spiritual Autobiography Project, I would like to invite you to pause this particular video right now and go back and watch the videos for weeks 1, 2, and 3. We did some foundational work in those early weeks that will be helpful to you, I think, as you do this week's lesson. So pause this video, definitely go back to week 1 especially, and then when you're all set, come on back and join us here. If, however, you are joining for week 4 because you are in week 4, or at least period 4 of your work with the Spiritual Autobiography Project, that's great. It just so happens that week 4 is a midway point for this project. And so before we jump into our Bible study, and actually before we jump into our writing for today, I would like to invite and encourage you to take a few minutes to reflect on how this process has been for you. And you can do that in a couple of ways. You can just hear me read these questions I'm about to read, think about them, and move on. You could jot some notes to yourself and share anything that feels relevant, or you could open up an email, type in my email address in the little to box. My email address is Emily, E-M-I-L-Y, at FCC-CL.org, and answer these questions in email and just send them straight my way. I'd love to know how this process is for you, how it's been for you, and what you're hoping to achieve in our remaining 3 weeks after this one. So here are the questions, just for a quick, brief, but honest reflection. The first is, where are you in the process of preparing your spiritual autobiography? Do you feel like you've got a whole lot of little pieces that so far don't really add up to anything that feels complete to you? Do you feel like I'm starting to see some patterns? Maybe there's a framework in there. Or do you feel like you really kind of got a flow and you know what you'd like this project to be when it's over? In the Zoom that we have on Thursday evenings from 6 o'clock to 7:30, where we workshop some pieces, which you're welcome to join. If you haven't yet, please join us. We've had some questions and some wonderings about what are we doing? Who are we writing for? What's this supposed to be at the end? And that really annoying answer to that is your final product is up to you, because I want this to be something that's meaningful for you. So you may be writing just as a journal. It may be a record for your family. It may be that, gosh, you want to be able to share some stories of God, and so you want to create a collection of that for anyone. And a lot of who you're writing for will determine what the final product might be. Not that it's a product, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, take a couple minutes. Where are you in the process of preparing your autobiography? And how do you feel that's going so far? The second question is, what's been the easiest part of this for you? Followed up immediately by what's been the most difficult? And then a final question would be, as you continue to move through these last few weeks of our project together, as we all continue to move through it, what can the community that's working on this together do to be present for you? Can we continue to support you in that writing workshop Zoom? Would you like to be able to email folks your stories or hop on the phone and chat with somebody about a piece you're writing? Can we pray for you? Please just let us know, let me know what kind of presence can be offered to you individually, particularly, personally, as we continue to move through this time. So again, reflect on those as you will. Send me your thoughts in email if you'd like to. And then let's go ahead and get started. So we're working our way through the story of Abraham and Sarah. They are giving us a framework for what it's like to trace a long story of encounter with God over a significant life journey. I mean, they're quite old, hundreds of years old by the time their story is completed, but we get to see them in specific encounters with the divine. And today we're going to continue that. So let's go ahead and turn to the book of Genesis. We're going to read two different short stories today. The first is in chapter 16, and it's verses 1 through 6. It's about Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar. You will notice that in this story, Abraham and Sarah have not yet had their name changed, so they are Abram and Sarai, but they are the same people. All right. Chapter 16, verses 1 through 6. Here we go. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bore him no children. She had an Egyptian slave girl whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, "You see that the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go into my slave girl, so it may be that I shall obtain children by her." And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. So after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian, her slave girl, and went and gave her to her husband Abram as a wife. He went into Hagar, and she conceived, and when she saw that she had conceived, she looked with contempt upon her mistress. Then Sarai said to Abram, "May the wrong done to me be on you. I gave my slave girl to your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, she looked upon me with contempt. May the Lord judge between you and me." But Abram said to Sarai, "Your slave girl is in your power. Do to her as you please." Then Sarai dealt harshly with her, and Hagar ran away. Our second story that we're going to draw from today is chapter 18, Genesis chapter 18, verses 1 through 15. Here's how it sounds in my Bible. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing near him, and when he saw them, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed down to the ground. And he said, "My Lord, if I find favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. Let me bring a little bread, that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you have said." And Abram hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of choice flour, knead it, and make cakes." Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the servant who hastened to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. They said to him, "Where is your wife Sarah?" And he said, "There, in the tent." And then one said, "I will surely return to you in due season, and your wife shall have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent entrance behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age. It had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I have grown old, and my husband is old, shall I have pleasure?" The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old?' Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? At the set time I will return to you in due season, and Sarah shall have a son." But Sarah denied it, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. And he said, "Oh yes, you did laugh." Today's stories are relationship stories. They are, in this context, marriage stories. They are also stories that have a lot to do with sexual encounter, fertility, and so before we go any further, before we jump into our writing prompts, we're going to use some buzzy language, and I just want to say, trigger warning. Trigger warning. Today's prompts, although not necessarily explicit, may move you to consider, remember, examine relationships in your life. Romantic relationships, sexual relationships. They may draw up for you fertility or infertility and the difficult, awful journey that fertility and infertility can be. So, if as you're hearing these prompts, if as you're writing, you feel the need to step away and say, "I'm not going to do this work," okay. Please give yourself permission to do that and to say no thanks. Alternatively, if you are doing this work and you feel I need to examine some of these relationships, this journey, this season, but I need someone to walk with me as I do that, okay. Give yourself permission to get that accompaniment. I am happy. I am humbled, honored to accompany you as best I can. You have my email address, Emily, so EMILY at FCC-CL.org. You can email me. As soon as you email me, in my email signature, you should get my cell phone number. You can also get my cell phone number at the church. Reach out. I will be a person for you. But you probably also have plenty of other people for you. So if, again, you feel that you do want to explore relationships that are troubling or painful, but you need a partner or partners to walk with you, get those people on board. Okay. So we're going to do this week, again, 5 writing prompts. My recommendation, as usual, is that you move through 4 of them pretty quickly and take more time for a 5th. You can either do what we've done in the past and work on the first 4 briefly for a 5 to 10 minute stretch, and then just work on the last one for longer, or you can do them all for 5 to 10 minutes and then see which of these prompts speaks most to you and give that a longer period of time. Remember, self-guided. This is your spiritual autobiography. Do what you need to do to make it meaningful. Okay, so here's our first prompt for the day. Thinking back to that first story we read about Abraham and Sarah and Hagar. Abraham and Sarah and Hagar are obviously intimately connected, and yet they have a lot of differences among them. Age is a difference. Remember, Abraham and Sarah are quite old, hundreds of years old by the time that their earthly life is ended. Hagar, if she is a slave girl, gross. If she's a slave girl, is probably much younger, right? Fertility. Yeah. So age differences, gender differences, pretty clearly gender expression differences, ethnicity differences. Hagar is named as an Egyptian. Also, if she is being enslaved, there is a human history of enslaving folks from different ethnicities than our own. Class difference, agency difference, fertility difference, lots of differences. So as you think about your relationships, maybe bring one specific relationship to mind, romantic, sexual, otherwise. How have the differences between you and a partner of yours been a blessing? Or a challenge? Or both? What did or do these differences that you've discovered reveal about your personal beliefs? Who held power in the relationship? And how is that power dynamic for you? Take 5 to 10 minutes. Think of one relationship, because it's hard to write about them all. Work on those questions. Pause the video. Come on back when you're ready for prompt number 2. Okay, for prompt number 2, in the second story, when God, we think that that's God. If you've ever heard the phrase entertaining angels unaware, this is the story that that is credited to, when God shows up and they kind of don't know it's God, and then it ends up being God. When God accepts Abraham's hospitality, Abraham immediately fetches an animal to butcher while Sarah works in the kitchen. So here's a question, a different relationship question. Did you grow up in a home where men brought home the bacon and women were expected to be in the kitchen or in the tent? Why or why not? Why or why not was your home like that? What gendered expectations did your family have of you when you were a child? And to what degree did you embrace or not embrace those expectations when you were a child? To what degree did you reject gender norms as you continued to grow up or embrace them? And as an adult, how have conflicted understandings of gender led to challenge for you in a relationship? And where, if at all, do you see God at work in your gender identity now? It's a lot of questions. But work on it as one prompt. Reflect on gender identity as it was originally presented to you, as it continues to be presented to you, and the blessings or complications therein. Take 5 to 10 minutes. Remember, you can always come back to this exercise. Pause the video. When you're ready, push play, and we'll go on to prompt number 3. Okay, for writing prompt number 3, again, thinking about the second story we read where Abraham is welcoming God and Sarah is in the tent. When God says that Sarah is going to be a mother, Abraham doesn't scoff, not that we're told, but the story says that Sarah laughs skeptically. So did your family teach you, consciously or not, that people of one gender or the other, well, it's pretty binary, did your family teach you, consciously or not, that people of one gender expression were more likely to be skeptical than another? Have you and a romantic partner ever significantly disagreed over belief in something? Maybe faith, maybe spirituality, maybe Cubs versus White Sox. Probably lean toward the faith thing since we're talking about spiritual autobiographies, but you know, you do you. And then, have you, like Sarah, ever had something in your love life, in a romantic relationship, or in a significant relationship, have you ever had something come true for you that once sounded absurd or comical, and how did that shape your relationship? How did that shape your belief? Again, big questions today. But give it 5 to 10 minutes. Pause the video, do some writing, come on back. Okay, prompt number 4 for the week. Sarah and Abraham in the first story, and actually later on, because it comes up later again, Sarah and Abraham get into multiple arguments about Hagar, the slave girl, and about her son, Ishmael. So try to think, how do you handle conflict in your romantic relationships or in your significant relationships? How have you and a significant partner ever struggled to figure out what it means to fight fair? How do you handle it when you win an argument with a partner? And how do you handle it when you lose? And how do you handle it when there's no clear outcome? And finally, if you've ever had a big life-changing decision that needed to be made in the context of a relationship, what aspects of your faith, of your relationship with God, either helped or hindered you in making that decision? Try to think of one specific conflict and answer those questions, writing about that one specific event. 5 to 10 minutes, pause the video, do your writing, come on back for prompt number 5. Okay, for our last prompt. There are people in our romantic lives, in our sexual lives, or just in our relationship lives who profoundly shape us, whether we love them or we feel like we hate them. So I want you to describe one such person who evoked love in you. Okay. And then, if you're able to, if you have the headspace and heart space and emotional support that is necessary to do this work, consider describing one such person who evoked hate, or at least a really strong dislike. When you describe one or both of these persons, here's what I want you to write about. What did they look like? Sensory details are good. How did they communicate? What were the similarities and differences in your backgrounds, and how did they shape your experiences of this person or these people? How, if at all, did religion and spirituality come into play in your relationship with them? And if you're working on both of these people, two people, what was it like for you? We're going to change that question. Forgiveness and grace, pardon me. Let's imagine that it's possible that the person you loved and the person you hated were actually the same person. If that is your experience, what was it like? What is it like for you to hold both of those feelings and experiences in that relationship? Take 5 to 10 minutes, do some writing. Come on back, pause the video, and then we'll think about which of these 5 prompts you'd like to work on for a little bit longer today. Okay, so you have just moved through 5 prompts examining relationship in your life. I want you to go back and reread each of those prompts and see if one of them either is sparking something in you that you have the ability to work with right now, head space, heart space, support space, or if one kind of is already developing into a story more than the others. One of them, as usual, is just going to feel like, this is what I want to work on. So take a look at that one. And try to make it a narrative if it's not already, and if it already is, add some more detail. So again, we're writing about people, so sensory detail about people, height, build, hair color, what comes to mind easily, what do you remember about them, what don't you remember about them. We've talked in the workshop a couple of times about how when it comes to memoir writing, autobiography writing, one of the great things we can do is cue in our readers when we are remembering things well or not, to be honest about, these are my memories, this is what I know, so what do you remember about them, what don't you, sensory details, that kind of stuff. If you're talking about one specific person and you want to move through your relationship with them, kind of that as a writing prompt, maybe notice the evolution of that relationship. When did you feel more love, and when did you notice you felt otherwise, and how have things changed over time? Go back and add details. Make it what you need it to be. I hope that you will share with someone, with me, with the Writers Workshop, with whoever you can. Our stories are sacred and valuable and wonderful, and they're stories of God, and your stories of God are particular in this world. No one else can share them. No one else has them. So we are blessed when you are able to offer them to the community. I hope that this feels like a good week, that these are good, meaningful, hearty prompts. If they're not, again, step away or get the support you need. But friends, I really look forward to having you here again next week. All right, take care. Happy writing. Bye-bye.